Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to Tom Spark Reviews. Now you saw the clickbait title and you're here. But I just want to assure you that this video is actually probably going to be the unbiased take that you want to see when regarding GrapheneOS, the recent drama with Louis Rossman, and past drama with YouTuber Techlore. I've been kind of watching all this drama from the sidelines, talking with Micay along the way. I've not really been involved in any of this drama because drama on YouTube for the most part is pretty dumb. So I think I kind of have a good perspective in giving you the kind of details and outsider view perspective without being involved in this without any bias. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and get into it. Now, the title of the video is Did Louis Rossman and Techlore Kill GrapheneOS? So first of all, I do want to kind of clarify some points because I think some people are kind of going crazy about this story. So basically, the recent controversies with GrapheneOS kind of primarily revolve around Daniel Micay. Now, the dude is kind of like the leader of the project. He's very active on social media, which I actually think is probably the downfall of all this. Now, Daniel Micay, if you didn't know, has autism, and I've talked to him on multiple occasions, and he's pretty, I would say he's pretty high on the spectrum. He's kind of like a genius when it comes to coding and stuff like that. When you actually talk to the dude, you can tell that his social skills are a little bit poor. Now, I'm saying that in the kindest way possible and with someone with empathy and understanding of autism. I know a lot about autism. I've done a lot of research into it. I know a lot of autistic people. And the autism is like a spectrum. You can have someone where like you see them day to day and you wouldn't even notice. They're just slightly autistic. And then you can have someone that's very autistic and you could definitely notice that they're just kind of different and you kind of have to approach them differently. And I would say that Daniel Micay is more like that. However, I could be wrong, but that's just kind of how I've kind of understood him. And I think that's kind of being charitable to him. At least I would hope so if he ever saw this video. So with that in mind, take the whole controversies into perspective. Everyone's kind of hating on Daniel Micay for being toxic and having poor communication skills. And I do think he does have poor communication skills, but I don't necessarily think he's intentionally being toxic, or I even really see him as toxic. So with that in mind, with all this drama, even before we kind of talk about it, I do think Daniel Micay should have hired someone else to handle all this PR stuff. If you're the kind of face of the company, if you're the developer of the company, you really want someone who could kind of handle all that without causing any controversy. And most companies, when it comes to, actual companies, are very good about this. But GrapheneOS, you have to remember, it's a nonprofit open source company. So you can't really expect them to have that kind of capability. Even though most people seemingly are, and I think they probably should have too. But remember, it's an open source nonprofit company. So at the end of the day, you have to remember, all these people are hating on Daniel Micay. He hasn't really made any money from this. His objective is just to provide privacy. So you also kind of have to look at him in that lens too, which I don't think a lot of people are doing. You look at a corrupt company like Blizzard or something like that, if they're doing poor communication. Recently with Blizzard, they had like a Q&A, and they were asking questions from fake viewers just to like give themselves the appearance of being good PR. Now that's really shitty, but when it comes to this project, I think you have to give it a little bit more benefit of the doubt. And that's one point I did want to make. So he's autistic. He may come across as abrasive and be challenging to interact with, but I don't necessarily hold him accountable for that. I think he just should have hired someone else to kind of do the social media stuff. And I've told him as such. So if you look at Louis Rossman's video, the crux of his video is just kind of talking about that really. That's really all there is to it. And the same with Techlore. They just kind of focus on how Daniel Micay is a super toxic person. He's very abrasive. And they just Daniel Micay kind of burned any bridge that those two people wanted to make. Initially, it seems like Techlore and Louis Rossman really wanted to help GrapheneOS, but were turned away by his abrasive communication style, which I can understand to some extent. However, I don't necessarily think Louis Rossman or Techlore should have made their later videos. I think supporting GrapheneOS and stuff like that. And if the guy pisses you off and you don't like him because of his communication style, maybe just move on from the project. Don't make any more videos or anything like that. Don't intentionally hurt the project after that point, which I do believe Louis Rossman and Techlore did. Now, one of Louis Rossman's main point is that, he would never have the intention of hurting the project itself because he made so many videos about it. He made like 3 videos about it, and each one got a good amount of views. But honestly, once you do that and then you make a video like this, while you deleted GrapheneOS, it's kind of like this one also has 50K views, so 170K views. Negativity on the internet a lot of times is much more powerful than the positivity. Who's to say how many of these people that liked GrapheneOS are now kind of intentionally going to go after the project and kind of fuck with it, it's kind of like he gave them this big giant help, and now he's making this negativity. And who knows how much it's really canceling each other out. I just think, in the end, if he really wants the best for GrapheneOS, he would have maybe not made this video. So guys, if you wanted to, another thing I wanted to mention, you could click on this link here. This will lead you to all the DMs and everything like that. I've actually read through all of them, and I didn't really find anything that concerning. There's kind of a slur in the autistic community, or people talking about autism. It's called like spurging out. And most of it just kind of seems like that to me. Micay wasn't threatening this guy or anything like that. Now, honestly, one thing that does kind of bother me when making this video is when you look at Louis Rossman's video and you see all the responses. One of the primary responses is that people are saying, hey, I'm autistic, or just because you're autistic doesn't mean you get to bully people and stuff like that. Lots of people are saying, oh, I have an autistic son and I approve of this message. But these people aren't really understanding the context. If you look at these DMs, if you read this conversation here on the screen, Daniel Micay really isn't being toxic. He's just saying, if you don't want to kind of help us remove some of this negativity online, we don't really want to be associated with you anymore. That's entirely his prerogative. Not only that, guys, but you're just kind of focusing on his autism as if oh, he's such a terrible person. Just because he has autism doesn't excuse it. But I think you guys are forgetting this guy has been swatted 3 times. He's had issues with his address being leaked by former business partners. I see people even on Reddit going to the next level of copium, saying like, oh, he's never submitted proof of being swatted. What do you want the guy to do? Show a police report that further doxes him to more people, gives him more opportunities to be swatted. It's just, there's so much bad faith arguments that it's pretty cringe to me. All right, guys, so probably one of the things that bugged me the most about this video is the fact that Louis Rossman claims that because of his beef with Daniel Micay, Micay is somehow going to introduce a vulnerability into the GrapheneOS code to target Louis Rossman. This is very toxic, I think, from Louis, and even kind of misrepresents the goal of GrapheneOS. GrapheneOS is an open source project, which means all the code is publicly verifiable and you can look at it every day. This would not be possible. It would completely kill the entire scope of GrapheneOS, and Micay would never do something like that. And the fact that Louis is saying that about Micay, or that he would even posit that idea, just goes to length to show you that he's kind of looking at Micay as bad faith as possible. You could see that example right here.
Bill got passed, and I wake up to a wall of text, the whole thing, so I can't be accused of having something out of context here.
So he kind of makes the point of saying like, oh, I'm not going to be accused of keeping something out of context. We're going to show you the whole thing, but he doesn't even want to read it. And I think that's important, because if you do read it, you could see that Micay isn't really being that toxic. Right here, he's saying, you even asked me to make a video with you about the misinformation targeting me. I don't want to see how you'd think I could trust you. So Micay is just saying he doesn't really trust Louis anymore, because Louis just kind of doesn't want to remove a comment or something like that. He's just kind of talking about how people have issues with Graphene and harassing them. He's saying here that the positive content doesn't matter if there is a huge amount of negative content. He says, you have an issue with my tone, replying to people community are harassing me. So he's saying here that some of the videos and stuff are harassing him. He's saying he's not really spreading these fabrications. Like fakely, these are actually... What the hell is Viagra spam bot? So all this, I don't really see like what's so bad about it. It's just a lot of text.
You can read it if you want.
He's not saying anything like, hey, Luis, if you don't remove this comment, I'm going to introduce a vulnerability in the code. I'm going to inject some code in there. And this is kind of what Luis says. Autism is not an excuse to bully people. That's pretty toxic in my opinion, but that's not even getting to the point. He's not even really bullying Louis Rossman here. You could read this if you want. Just like Louis says, he's not even bullying him. So
you can pause the screen. At one point, he's like, if
this is the real kicker.
You have an issue with autistic people communicating and thinking differently than you, then that's your issue. And I said, just up front, autism is not an excuse to bully people. And this just seems like the biggest cry bully thing. I'll be honest with you. It just seems like the biggest.
So here you can see that Luis is kind of not giving Micay the benefit of the doubt. He's not really understanding the context. He doesn't understand that Micay has been swatted 3 times. He doesn't understand that Techlore's community has been attacking him. You could go look in Techlore's community itself, search Daniel Micay or even Graphene. You could find examples of it yourself if you want to. Now, if you guys don't believe me that Techlore is toxic, you're one of those people on Privacy Guide forums that says, where's the proof that Techlore's community is toxic? All right, well, today is 5/28/2023. Just yesterday in Techlore's Discord server, this guy says, nothing special, just Micay continuing his schizophrenic behavior. Yeah, so not toxic, right? These people are insinuating that since Daniel Micay has now left the project, that things are going to vastly improve, blaming Daniel Micay for all the issues, claiming that Micay is a liar. This guy is kind of insinuating that he might not even have gotten swatted. This guy says, who's more unhinged, Daniel Micay or the transphobic Denovo cracker? So this is from the last 2 or 3 days alone. If you guys want more evidence, go ahead and look in Techlore's Discord. Or if you want more information about that, I made a video specifically on my channel talking about it. But it just seems like Louis Rossman in this example is like one of those people in elementary school. It's like some kid's getting bullied and he's like, oh, you just need to stand up for yourself. You're not getting bullied. Stop being a crybaby. And that's what Louis Rossman here is essentially doing.
I'm going to punch somebody in the face at a bar and then call the cops. And it's literally continuing. It's continuing. This is attempted, like that is attempted. Dude, I left a YouTube.
This guy doesn't understand. Micay is saying it's attempted murder because pretty much what happened is Techlore made that video. Maybe indirectly, that video caused, I don't know, say left 1,000 people to start harassing Graphene or something like that. Maybe one of those people decided to swat GrapheneOS. Whether Techlore talked to that person or not is not really the issue at hand. It's just that it could have inspired that person to swat Micay. It's not a huge leap of logic. It's just how it works on the internet. If you make a video, you're responsible for the reaction of that video, whether you want to admit it or not. So being swatted, yes, it is attempted murder.
YouTube comment saying that is informative. Attempted.
So from that, this is the conclusion he comes to. From all that, this is the conclusion he comes to.
And here's the thing. The entire reason that I'm running this operating system on my phone is because I believe in privacy and security.
And yet he believes in privacy and security so much that he recorded all these private conversations and leaked them in a Google Drive format. Oh, he really believes in privacy and security, right?
Do I feel comfortable running your code on my phone after reading this?
So again, nothing Micay said was a threat to inject code into his phone, anything like that with GrapheneOS. It's just a misrepresentation of the product. But what Louis Rossman is talking about here is saying, hey, if I don't like him, how can I trust his code? Well, it's open source. Louis Rossman knows this. He knows that he's not going to add anything. I don't really know why he made this point. If Micay added something to the code for vulnerability for Louis Rossman, people would be able to see it and it ultimately kill the project. And even some of the comments don't really seem to realize that. So that is something I definitely wanted to mention, that kind of a bad point he made and kind of misleading, I think. Additionally, I don't really respect how Louis Rossman just leaked all these DMs in the privacy community. You're not really supposed to leak DMs outside of the privacy community. You're not really supposed to leak DMs. This guy was actually, if you go to the beginning of the video, he was literally recording the conversation as it was happening, which is kind of bad faith in my opinion. I believe that, and especially from what Daniel Micay has said on Twitter, these conversations were private and he did not expect them to become public, which is understandable for sure. He was even saying here, I do not think being overly emotional in a private conversation with someone because I was desperate to get them to stop supporting someone harassing me justifies what that person did in response. So he was being pretty real with Louis Rossman, and Louis Rossman just was recording it and getting ready to expose him, which I think is pretty bad faith. If you look at the conversation here, Louis Rossman is saying, I think some of the screenshots, how he communicated with others in that video, were disappointing. He was talking about Techlore's video here. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I already made a response to it a year ago, or almost a year ago. And honestly, if you look at this video, you could watch the whole video. There's some points of the video where Techlore is criticizing Micay for being abrasive towards companies like Signal and some of those other ones. And you're allowed to be abrasive if you want. He's never like toxic like they claim, which is ironic because if we look at this Techlore video, you could see Techlore really kind of started to realize the bad light that he was put in was actually true. And it's kind of funny. If you look at this video, the video has this little thumbnail of this Rick and Morty guy looking kind of crazy and insane, which is kind of where all the drama started in the first place. Micay really didn't like how these actors in the video were calling him autistic and kind of insinuating he was crazy. People who have autism and stuff like that really don't want to be alienated like that. So Techlore made this thumbnail and it was really toxic. And now you could see the thumbnail is clearly changed. I don't know when he changed this, but it kind of shows that he realized he did something wrong there. Not only that, but the title itself is changed as well. Aside from what it used to be called, you could see GrapheneOS, the most toxic community. So Techlore definitely walked that back, and I don't think I've seen anyone call that out. Clearly shows that he was kind of in the wrong there. But anyways, I made those points about that. I don't think he should have leaked the DMs. But from these DMs, he's just saying, hey, if you don't remove this toxic support for Techlore, you'll be banned. So I don't think that was a good move by Daniel Micay. But again, that's kind of within his right. If he doesn't want to have that relationship with Louis, especially seeing how Techlore has pinned this little comment from Louis, almost like a meme, saying that he's probably happy as well. Not only that, but Techlore has specifically come out as saying in past videos he no longer uses any custom operating systems for Android. He just uses stock Google because he thinks he's too popular that someone will target him now.
I've always threat modeled for where I am today. I feel like my threat modeling decisions I make up until now have always been made for the present issues that I deal with. 3 years ago, I was looking at my general threats and the things I was concerned about, and I would act accordingly, which is generally what we recommend. The problem is my lifestyle and our channel is very unpredictable in regards to how much we grow. And so now I want to be able to try to anticipate issues I'm going to deal with in 3+ years down the road. In 3+ years, I do believe I'll be more concerned with targeted attacks from both general adversaries, but also maybe even spyware from high threat models like governments. I don't know what we'll be working with. I don't know what clients will have in things like consulting.
A little interesting detail here. Techlore actually has a bachelor's degree in graphic design. So if you're planning on using him for consulting for your IT business, you might want to kind of think about that. Also, check out the dislikes. Yikes.
I don't do much with tech. And if it wasn't for Techlore, I probably wouldn't even have a computer, which is what I said earlier. So like, I just don't do much with my tech. Like photos are the only thing that like I really need to worry about storing and doing something with them. That's really it.
So guys, now that we've gotten to the end of this video, do I think Louis and Techlore have killed GrapheneOS? Well, I do believe they have killed what used to be GrapheneOS. Now the founder no longer works on the project. The guy instrumental in making the best open source privacy operated system on Android is now no longer a part of the project, primarily, at least from what I believe, due to Louis Rossman's videos and Techlore's videos on him. That cannot really be disputed. However, that said, I do think the project will continue with the people that GrapheneOS or Micay has chosen to lead the project going forward. But in summation, I do believe that Louis did violate the privacy of Daniel Micay by leaking his DMs. I do believe Techlore's video that he initially made on GrapheneOS being a toxic community, then later rebranding the video, changing the thumbnail, changing the title, does kind of prove that Techlore did realize that after he made that video. I do think that Micay should have avoided all this drama probably, and it would have been better for the project if he had done so. But due to a combination of his autism and maybe social unawareness, maybe that couldn't really have happened. And I think we should have been more empathetic for him, given that there really is no profit motivation in this company, being an open source nonprofit company. I do also believe that Louis misrepresents GrapheneOS in his latest video, insinuating that Micay might introduce a vulnerability, which would never happen at all, considering what the project's goals are. I do believe that Louis did do a lot of good for GrapheneOS. However, his latest video almost kind of completely wipes the floor. When I see a lot of people nowadays in the last couple of days saying that they question the validity of the project given Louis's latest video. I do think that while Micay does have autism, it doesn't necessarily excuse bad behavior, but at least in my opinion and what I've shown you in this video, I don't really see that much toxic behavior from Micay. I don't think he ever actually bullied Louis. Louis kind of makes it seem like he was, but and then at the same time, he says, you know, that Micay shouldn't be crying about being bullied and stuff like that. So I think that kind of doesn't really make sense. Additionally, Micay never even banned Louis from his servers and stuff like that. So I do think that is misrepresented as well. Anyways, guys, those are my final thoughts here. I hope I made sense in this video. Please do not send any hate to Louis, Techlore, or Daniel Micay. This was just a video giving my thoughts latest on the issue, since I did see a lot of things that I thought were problematic with how things were presented. Anyways, guys, if you want to help support my community, make sure to join my Discord, check out vpntierlist.com, and I'll see you again very soon.